a doom-laden appraisal of social media, shoegaze musings on the collapse of life as we know it, a collection of songs about being better for yourself, a joyful disco-tinged LP, and lovesick power pop. This is 5 to 9's Album of the Month episode for May 2024. I'm Andrew Belt, editor of the 5 to 9 blog, and joining me as always is Karl Blakesley of New Music Central and Kiley Larsen, the founder of Santa Fe-based record label Mañana Records. So, how are you both doing?
Doing great. How about you?
Yeah, we're finally here with this one, aren't we? So, with apologies that we didn't do this one earlier, but we were saying how it's a trip down memory lane, sort of going back to May. So, hope everyone's interested in still finding out about these albums.
Holidays.
You've recovered from Download Festival?
Just about, yeah. Yeah, my voice might go at some point from all the screaming and shouting that I've done this weekend, but
I might have to use the phone, maybe type it in and they can.
Yeah. If I turn into Steve Hawking midway through.
There we go. All good. Before we dive into the 5 records, we have our 3 music highlights from the month outside of these 5. So Kiley, we'll kick off with you. What stood out for you from May?
Sure. May was, I thought, a pretty solid month. You had a hard time coming up with just 3 music moments outside of what we're going to talk about later. But I guess from a selfish standpoint, had Strange Magic's Slightest of Hands tape compilation come out. And like you're saying, memory lane. This does feel like memory lane for this one as well. But yeah, for those of you that are unfamiliar, Strange Magic is out of Albuquerque. And we just put out a new 22-song tape compilation of the best of his 4 records from last year. So, plenty of stuff to choose from. And we still could only get it to 22 between the both of us. So check out that one. Let's see. The other one that I wanted to talk about is So Long Surfer that I shared with you guys. Philly-based band that they don't hide their Beach Boys influence, including Landlocked, the album title, which is a deleted Beach Boys album that was supposed to come out in the early 70s. So just really get into it. But I think they did a better job at doing what I can sometimes think of surf rock with a band that I think we're going to talk about in a bit. I preferred this one over that one. And then finally, the other album I wanted to highlight is Female Gaze's Tender Futures. They're a Tucson-based shoegaze atmospheric trio and put out a 5-song record that's just fantastic, and got to host them a couple of weeks ago alongside Growl Brothers out of Albuquerque opening, and we had an amazing turnout for them. Really fun night. Fantastic, friendly people. So Female Gaze, one under the radar there that you need to check out.
Yeah, and you're very much on vogue there with what you're saying with the your background with the beach and the palm trees. So surf rock, one of the highlights from May for you.
Yeah. It's the time of year.
Exactly. Yeah. We're starting, and I think even in from the 5 albums, we'll probably come across at least 1 or 2 which have a bit more of a summer tune to them. So 3 albums. Well, 2 albums and an EP. You said it was 5 songs. The Female Gaze.
So they are fairly long though. The single is 6 minutes. it's still hefty.
Yeah. So it classifies as an album then. I know that's
I think so.
Fair enough.
Let's see here. Yeah, 32 minutes. I'd say that's
definitely
definitely. Yeah. No, one of the ones I've been listening to this month is a mini album, and I'm just like, where does that fit? I suppose
When's an EP a mini album?
Yeah.
Confuse things further. So there we go. Karl, what were your 3 music highlights from May?
Yeah, so I mean, May was kind of like the start of summer festival season for me. So Probably no surprise that my 3 highlights this month, 3 festivals. So yeah, first one was Get Together in Sheffield, which was one that I'd never been to before. It's basically, how to describe it, it's like set in this Kelham Island area of the city centre, where it's just all these like really nice bars, restaurants, breweries, and music venues, like just all within like a mile walk of each other. So it's kind of like a metropolitan festival, but even with a metropolitan festival, like usually there's a lot of like walking back and forth across a busy city centre. Whereas this one's quite nice because it's all, like I say, like in one place, which is quite perfect. So yeah, amazing day. Sun was shining red hot all day, and yeah, because a lot of the venues were these breweries, lovely craft beer flowing, and yeah, ended up seeing some amazing performances. So the 2 that I'll mention just from that festival. So Fiona Lee, who's this young rock singer-songwriter, she only has 1 single out so far, so about as brand new as you can get. She played this tiny room in it's called the Antiques Emporium, that, fully enough, Another Sky are meant to be playing later on this year. So it's like, oh, I might have to go back for them. But played this tiny room, and not ashamed to say it, she had me on the verge of tears at one point. There was just like, I don't know, being in this tiny room, and it was just her voice and like the vulnerability that she presented, like the way she bared her soul on that stage. I was like, I honestly don't think I've seen anything like it. It was just an incredible experience. And yeah, it just really blew me away. It was kind of one of those ones where I wasn't expecting it. I'd only heard the 1 song, went in, and it was just her, this guitar, only a few people there, but she played it like she was, headlining Glastonbury or something. It was just amazing. So that was fantastic. And then the other highlight of the day, and the reason that we booked the festival, was CMAT headlining, which was on mine, but certainly my other half's bucket list of artists to see this year. And yeah, just didn't disappoint. Incredible charisma, exceptional performer. Even threw in a cover of Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights, which was amazing. And then yeah, just ended on Stay for Something, which was like this emphatic triumphant moment to cap off an amazing day. So yeah, only £40 a ticket, that one as well. So considering the acts that we got to see, it was like a full day of new music. If the lineup's as good next year, definitely one we'll go back to. So that was that one. And then the following week, it was Live at Leeds in the Park, which started off horribly. There was our 90-minute journey to Leeds took 4 hours. So we actually, So we actually ended up missing the start of a Sprints set, which was obviously one of the ones that I really wanted to catch. Obviously, our discussion about that album, it was like, oh, maybe I just need to see it live. Only managed to catch the last couple of songs. But yeah, those last couple of songs that I saw, just really full of energy, and yeah, definitely gonna have to revisit that album, I think, again. There was a few other problems too, other than the traffic. There was a bit of sound bleed and a few set delays at points, but yeah, the music and like the location that really kind of made up for it. Some of the stages were like set on top of these like huge hills, so you're sat watching a band like the Slow Readers Club or Mystery Jets, and all you can see behind them is all this like lovely forestry and greenery in the background. So yeah, it was stuff like that about it. I thought it was really nice. But yeah, I mean, the standout from a musical standpoint was Future Islands. Main reason I wanted to go, and yeah, just knocked it out of the park. First time seeing them. Obviously, had seen a lot of clips of Samuel T. Herring like performing online, but yeah, just seeing him there in person, it just, yeah, next level. Couldn't take my eyes off him. He was growling, he was scissor kicking, he was throwing his body around the stage. It was like, even gyrating at some points. It was just like so animated, so theatrical, and yeah, just unbelievable. And as you can see, I went and bought a t-shirt to celebrate that moment. So yeah, just a great way to finish the day there. And then the last one I'll run through very quickly is Dot, which was the day after Live at Leeds. Basically, similar setup to the Get Together one, where it's just all venues across Notts hosting music from like midday to 2 a.m. Always an incredible lineup of local, national, sometimes international talent as well. And I can't tell you how many of my favourite artists and albums I've discovered through that festival over the last 10 years. This year's lineup, fantastic again. One of the highlights, Anthony Smirik, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, who I actually missed the day before at Live at Leeds because of the traffic. Thankfully got that second chance to see him, and he was just, biblical. Just great festival music, great production, had lasers and all this going off. He's from Manchester, so he did this like brilliant cover of Happy Mondays in there as well. Ended up crowd surfing, and he was the highlight of the day for me. But yeah, other great acts throughout the day. Bleach Lab, who made one of my top 10 albums last year. Wonder Horse, who, when their album comes out later in the year, I think they're just going to blow up to another level as well. So yeah, just another fantastic day of music. And that was my 3 highlights for this month. A busy start to festival season.
Hopping across the major cities in the north. So yeah, Sheffield, Leeds to Nottingham. Leeds obviously the best. Well, you got to cling on to something after the football season.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
So and similarly, you got kind of a bit of a summer vibe with that Future Islands t-shirt with the kind of, it looks like a cloud scene, but actually, or it's forest. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, blue and white kind of meshed together. Very nice.
Yeah, it looks like one of Kiley's like Mañana. It's like tie dye.
Yeah,
it's a good tie dye. I was appreciating it.
Yeah, so you've made the effort. I look like I'm recording in January, just black, the usual background. But yeah, but then I suppose I don't have much to offer on the summer front in terms of gigs, although my 3 highlights from May, 2 of which I share with Kiley. So outside of the 5 we'll talk about tonight, the So Long Surfer album, Landlocked, was my favorite one outside of these 5.
All right.
So yeah, as you said earlier, Philly band, playing surf rock. Are there beaches in Philadelphia? Excuse my ignorance. It's always sunny in Philadelphia, but
the closest is New Jersey, which isn't too far, but yeah, it's inland.
Fair enough. So they're not so far away that it would be so odd.
Just cold.
Yeah, as often is the case on our chat, there's lots of recommendations here, there, everywhere, and I'd sort of dip in now and again when I can, and this was just one which listened to and it just stuck straight away. And then it's a good kind of half hour record, just flies by, and I was just going back to it again and again, and kind of reminded me of Best Coast with Crazy For You, another kind of record which I loved back in the day. So this one has ended up being one of my favorite ones of the year so far. So great shout on that, particularly considering that there seems to be a low amount of listens which they have on the streaming platforms as it is. So there's 2 of us saying it. If you're listening, do give them a shout.
I'll add in there as well. I really enjoyed that record.
Yeah. We were all
you just didn't see them at a festival.
So yeah, that was the top one. I mean, another one which I wanted to give a shout out to, which isn't one which has been mentioned already, is the second album by Mui Zhu, which is Something or Nothing to Die For. Second album from Hong Kong British musician Eva Liu. Her first album, Rotten Egg for a Bunless Century, or I've done it the wrong way around, Rotten Bun for an Eggless Century. It was as weird as it sounds. Brought out last year. It was the first one I reviewed for the 5 to 9 blog. So I think it's almost like, well, best give this one a go as well. And so yeah, reviewed that. You can read my thoughts if you wish. But I just felt carries on in the same vein. This kind of interesting electronic focused kind of pop music. The singing is something I've pulled up in both reviews. It could be a little bit more lively. It can be a bit monotonous, but there are some really fantastic moments. And I do feel that musically, she's sort of gone to another level with her second album and starting to build quite a discography just 2 years into her career. And then finally, Strange Magic. So yeah, that was the first one Kylie mentioned. So a nice little circle we've done here. And I don't need to add too much about the mechanics of the album, the 22 songs, the clawing it back from the 4 albums produced last year. But yeah, another one I very much enjoyed, and I think it's almost got that compilation feel to it because there's quite a few genres which are traversed across the album, and you can kind of pick which bits you enjoy most. And yeah, again, you can read my thoughts in the 5 to 9 blog there if you're interested for more on Strange Magic. So yeah, that was a very quick whip through. Still no gigs to shout about, but maybe next month there might be some progress there. So that was our highlights from May all the way back to last month, and now we're going to move on to our 5 albums. And our first album, this will be interesting. Let's just go with I'm totally fine with it. There's a few emojis, there's a few swear words, which completes the title of this album by Arab Strap. And this was chosen by Andy P, who's also known as Arctic Reviews on X, or The Voice of Reason on Instagram. Really fantastic reviewer. Been doing this for years and years, writes for various publications. And yeah, this was his selection as our guest selector for the month. So I believe, Kylie, you've got a bit of history with Arab Strap, or at least you know some of their back catalogue. So I thought you could kick us off here.
Yeah, it's the second album since their reunion, and their kind of first phase. Zenith was when I was in high school, and I don't know if you guys if eMusic was ever a thing your way, emusic.com, but it was kind of like a post Napster pre-streaming bridge where you could pay a monthly subscription and download all of these records that were mostly indie labels that were embracing it. And so, Arab Strap, that makes me think of, their fellow countryman Mogwai. And this is kind of when I got into both of those bands. And out of their early records, I think The Red Thread is my favorite. And then at the same time, like one of those bands that they went away and I didn't think of them very often. It's just have always appreciated them, but didn't find myself really going back to those early records. But I did, As Days Get Dark in 2021. I really did enjoy that record a lot and felt, it's classic broody Arab Strap, which I think where things were at in 2021 really, matched the mood. And I think, with this new one, I'm totally fine with it from the cover with the, tweet and the emojis and stuff. It's obviously a commentary on the internet age that we're in. What is the internet leading to? The dream is dead on what the internet could have been. But between that and society, and I do appreciate that this one has a rawer edge to it, I think, than the last one did. And I'm totally, the opener I could take or leave, but Bliss, Sociometer Blues, Hide Your Fires, Summer Seasons, Molehills, Strawberry Moon, like that run right there is just fantastic. And it's I had to come around to these with doing, the monthly shuffle, because every time I started this record, I felt like I was getting distracted or just not giving it the energy that it deserved. And every time one of those songs would come up on the shuffle, I'd be like, okay, this is something I'm going to keep coming back to here. So, it's I've taken it in pieces, one song at a time over the last month, and really enjoy that first half run. I just think overall there's like some weird production choices on this, that it just feels a little incohesive and inconsistent sometimes, as good as Aiden Moffat's lyrics are throughout this whole thing. I think just musically, not 100% there for me.
Okay, so wavering a little bit on.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Okay. So Karl, were you similarly kind of broadly happy with this album?
I would say I'm totally fine with it. There we
Hey?
go. Hey! Oh, no. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I'm Strap. It was like a name I've seen a lot, but never really listened to. Was actually speaking to Matt McAllister, Blinded by the Floodlights, about this record, and he said, you must know this song. And it was like their big single from 1996, the first big weekend. And I listened to it. I was like, no, not even this is ringing a bell. So it was like, yeah, so much belated and long overdue listen to an Arab Strap record. And yeah, I mean, I'll say I've actually had a fantastic time with this one, I would say. Obviously, I can't vouch for how it kind of compares with, the last one of the reunion, or indeed like the rest of the catalogue. But, in terms of what I found on here, it's right up my street. I think I said it in the group chat where it was like a bit like Placebo meets The National for me, like two of my favorite bands. It's almost like Placebo's like dark industrial sound, but with like a Scottish Matt Berninger like fronting. It's dark, it's poetic. Yeah, it's got like that electronic sound going on. And like you said, Kiley, like lyrically from Aiden Moffat, it's so sharp. Takes the ordinary everyday observations on like our divided world and makes them into these like extraordinary, scathing at times pieces of art. So, the first two tracks, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right. Alan Tonsness, is that how you?
Tonsness.
I'm not going to pronounce
Yeah,
it because I'm
it's
probably
basically like all the words together. That one. When I saw that as well, I was like, "What is that?" But yeah. All Tonsness.
All right. So there's that one.
That's why I said the opener. I'm glad you picked up on that, Andrew, because I did not after all this time. Nice.
Took me a while of studying that word.
Yeah. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then, I can't even say this one now. Sociometer Blues. Sociometer Blues. I can't. That's it. You threw me there. Yeah, both of those tracks are a prime example. Just tearing into online Twitter wars and our obsession with social media, which obviously like is the wider theme throughout the record as well. And then Bliss is just that, just the brilliant like juxtaposition of this dark prose about toxic masculinity, and then these like brilliant like New Order style electronics going on. But yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the more personal tracks. So obviously, that those first few, it's kind of looking at the wider world, but it's the more personal tracks in that second half that start to resonate, I think, even more for me. You mentioned Strawberry Moon, fantastic single. You're Not There, got these like upbeat melodic synths, but then like again just counteracting that with like really gut punching, quite devastated lines about like a lost love. And then Is It Haven't You Heard straight after that one is just fantastic as well. So just that run towards the end is kind of like, it starts off really strong, and then that run towards the end, it kind of really hits hard for me. So Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I won't try and pronounce any more song names, but yeah, just big fan of this one, and I think it kind of came at the time where it was coming into summer, and we had like a lot of grey, rainy days in May, and this one I was kind of like drawn to on those days, and it kind of suited the mood quite perfectly. So yeah, glad to finally get acquainted with Arab Strap.
Yeah, broadly, I'd say a similar experience for me because sort of pre-reunion, I'd never listened to them. I probably don't know the first big weekend. I think that's the song you mentioned, which Matt talked about. But yeah, they seem to be part of that kind of 90s Scottish scene, which I've read a lot about, but haven't really engaged with an awful lot. Like, I think Bell and Sebastian and some others from back then, obviously Mogwai, who I did with the Mercury Prize nomination I had a few years ago. So and then I didn't listen to their reunion album 2021, but I did hear one of the songs which I really loved, and I don't know why I didn't listen to the album. So I was very pleased that this was picked, and also very pleased with the listening experience. Yeah, I just had a blast with this. Love a good lyricist, and Aidan Moffat definitely is, with his Scottish drawl, his brogue. It's just very compelling. In someone else's hands, it could be not so entertaining, but in his, he makes the mundane really sound interesting, and I think that's probably the skill on this album. And yeah, read a few articles as well around it where they gained the inspiration and essentially how they had a kind of borderline obsession with social media and kind of then drew back and realized what it had taken from their life and that engagement they have with people. And then so it started to feed into this kind of concept, I suppose. And it did remind me of one we reviewed back in November, Aesop Rock, which was kind of loosely based on kind of the theme of the internet and it's good or it's bad, that kind of thing. And this one again took that on, but this one I'd say, even though I enjoyed the Aesop Rock album, I thought this was an upgrade on that. And yeah, you've mentioned quite a few of them. I mean, All at Onceness, I think all the singles I really loved. So All at Onceness, I loved the sinister bass, which goes very well with the lyrics. Bliss, lovely kind of segue into seeking something from the natural world, rather than just being stuck online. Sociometer Blues, another one which is great. And I just love the line, "When will I be cured from this crippling fucking FOMO?" I just love that line.
Yeah.
Some really memorable, and I think probably anyone who listens to the album, they would probably have their favorite lyric, but that was certainly mine. So you got that, and then Strawberry Moon as well. I think that was the first single from the album, and that's just another lovely one. And again, the inspiration reading about it was just Aidan looking out of his flat one evening, and there was a red moon, and he just felt this overwhelming kind of wonder, and then wrote that into his lyrics here. So yeah, just a real fun record. Really enjoyed it. I think I agree with you, Karl, as well, that it probably would be better suited to kind of darker days and the winter times. But yeah, we had enough of that in the UK during May, so it wasn't quite. If we were listening to it this week and next week, we might have been harder to deal with, I think, as the sun has finally arrived over here. So yeah, really enjoyed it, and very glad to be acquainted with the duo. So that's Arab Strap. And now we move on to our second album. So DIIV, Frog in Boiling Water. Karl, I'm going to ask you to give us your thoughts first here.
Yeah, so I was introduced to DIIV. I'll say DIIV. I've had trouble pronouncing this name, much like the songs from the previous album. So yeah, I was introduced to DIIV a while back by the music Twitter community. One of the bands on there that a lot of people were just going nuts for. So it was kind of like a case of, okay, I'll dive into their back catalogue and see what I find. And yeah, I mean, I was fairly impressed with what I found. Great mix of shoegaze, you know, a bit of hazy like indie going on, bit of dream pop. And yeah, the first two albums in particular, Oshin and Is R, which doesn't quite roll off the tongue. But yeah, I thought this would do well in the poll. And yeah, it did. It stormed home. It was yeah. I can't remember how many votes it got in the end, but yeah, I kind of thought the Twitter community would push this one toward our way, and yeah, they came through. So thanks for voting this one. Because yeah, I was quite excited to see what DIIV were up to in 2024. But yeah, I mean, having said all that, it was like, it's one that even, you know, a little while after we first got it, which was like at the end of May, it's still not quite winning me over so far. I think compared to their other albums, it's definitely darker, it's definitely moodier, which, you know, going back to the album strap records, you know, on paper that should appeal to me more. But I think with that darker, more atmospheric sound, they've also become more like single paced, a little less eclectic. And, you know, if I'm being honest, in parts it does become a bit monotonous as well. Brown Paper Bag I enjoyed as a single, but yeah, that opening run is just, yeah, proving a bit of a slog for me. There's some moments, you know, of interesting guitar work, but a lot of the time I kind of find myself wanting it, you know, just to move along or pick up the pace a bit. And it just doesn't quite happen. Yeah, it just kind of sits there and becomes this drone in the background, and, you know, I find myself reaching for like the skip button. But you know, there are some moments in the back end that redeem it for me. I think Little Bird is the standout. I think that's fantastic. By far my favorite here. Really spacious, really dreamy, and you just, you know, lose yourself in those sonics. And I think it's the closest track to, you know, what we heard on previous albums as well. Everyone Out was another one I really liked. It's a bit more minimalistic than Little Birds, but similar kind of vibe going on there. And then the other one in the back end, Samba the Drums. Again, some really incredible guitar work, quite hypnotic, a bit grungy as well in places. So yeah, it's one of those where it definitely has its moments, and, you know, possibly with a bit more time with it, sort of, you know, later in the year when weather's getting colder, rainier. Yeah, I might come round to it a bit more, but yeah, right now it's just lacking the variation, you know, that kept me more engaged in their previous work. So some good moments, but overall it's not won me over yet.
A so-so review there from Karl. So Kylie, are you also feeling so-so, or so bad, or so good?
I think I'm feeling so bad, but I echo a lot of what Karl said. And, you know, I was looking forward to this record because DIIV, you know, I associate with that early 2010s Brooklyn scene with like Beach Fossils and Wild Nothing and Real Estate, bands that, you know, at that time I was very into. And you know, 12 to 15 years later, after all of these debuts, it's kind of interesting to see where all these bands are at. You know, I still enjoy Wild Nothing. I think he consistently puts out pretty good stuff, and I loved Beach Fossils record from last year. I thought it was great, and that's kind of what I was, you know, hoping I'd dive here. But I know that this is getting a lot of critical acclaim and people are really liking it, but it's kind of just on the lines of like that last Real Estate record where I'm just, this genre, even though DIIV continues to change up their sound, it's just not something that's really interesting to me at the moment. And it really is. I appreciate there's really gorgeous textures on this record, but it really is just the mid-tempo. Every single track seems to be stuck in that third gear. And Karl, I'm with you, Brown Paper Bag. I think that was the lead single. I was like really excited about this after that. But, I can honestly say that and Somber the Drums and Little Birds, like those are the 3 songs on this album that I find myself coming back to. Like Everyone Out is just 5-minute slog, and it's, kind of halfway through the record there. And it just, as Karl said, this album has a hard time getting going. And then that 5th track hits and it just downshifts more. And it's like, every time I find myself usually bailing around that point, while still knowing that 2 of the 3 songs I like are in the second half. But yeah, I just I'm happy for DIIV, and there's a lot of backstory to them, and I'm glad that they're still around and seem to be maybe more popular than ever right now, especially stateside. But yeah, this one just unfortunately isn't for me.
So there we go. So bad. And then I think I was probably the most positive, and I know that on the chat you guys kind of conveyed that disappointment with this album. I think this is the one I chucked into the poll, just based on Brown Paper Bag, and that was a pick from Matt for the playlist we had for the previous month. So thought hearing that and not really knowing what else to go for a second choice after choosing Lemon Twigs as the main one here, I'll give it a go. And then, as you say, the Twitter community came through on this one. But yeah, listening to it the first time, I think, yeah, you mentioned there's a gorgeousness to it, Kiley, that it's quite absorbing, as I suppose shoegaze albums tend to be. And yeah, initially I was really digging that, but when I actually spent more of the time listening to reading the lyrics, and yeah, trying to sort of say, right, is this going to give me that oomph, which I'm kind of, because I was enjoying it but wasn't getting the oomph coming through, which sometimes only when you sort of remove any other distractions and listen to it, read the lyrics as you go along. It didn't quite happen. And that's not to say I think there's some great songs, and I think almost what, Karl, you were inferring about, kind of if you listen to some of them just by themselves, I think that probably comes across better, or certainly from my point of view, that when you have this album which is in that mid pace and it sticks to it, that can be quite a slog. But my favorite one here was Frog in Boiling Water. So the title track reminded me a bit of Silverchair. Just thought it was more engaging than what had come before, even though Brown Paper Bag was included in that opening run, which I think is great. Also really liked Dinamba, the opening track. Everyone Out, I enjoyed that as well. I just thought it needed a bit of cheerfulness, which there's precious little of that on this. When you do look at the lyrics and also their inspiration with this kind of apocalyptic vision they have with the album, and that hence the Frog in Boiling Water. This one, I'm on my way out of town. There's a bit cheerier guitar strumming. There's hopeful lyrics, and you kind of thought, okay, is this gonna be the catalyst for something a bit different on the second half? No. So you have that, and then it just goes back to where they were. So that's the only one which is different from a lyrical perspective. And I think that after a while, that just started to, I don't know, drain the energy from what they're doing. And I think I think perhaps with a bit of a different lyrical slant, or even a bit of a narrative arc here, they could have had something which would have given me that extra bit I was kind of looking for. But as it is, it's an album I very much enjoyed, but nothing more than that. And just felt there was something missing, which would have taken it from enjoyment to really liking and putting up higher in my year-end list. But as it is, it's not really touching the top of that. So there we go. I think a bit mixed bag, mixed Brown Paper Bag, and we'll leave DIIV there and go into our next album, and it's Flamingosis, Better Will Come. So this was Kiley's pick.
Yeah, I guess I would say that in a way, this is one of my most anticipated records of the year because Daymaker, I think it was 2022, was my top album of the year back on the newsletter. And, um, you know, in the end, I am just a sucker for good uh, modern, disco funk, instrumental, have a good time. And Aaron Vasquez, who performs as Flamingosis, is always, my go-to for half the year when the weather is nice. Um, so, Daymaker was I think, a pretty chilled out effort, and kind of expected that again with Better Will Come. And this one really, I think, amped up the funk and the soul, and it's got, a really great punch to it. Um, and I think I'm just going to go ahead, instead of saving this for one of my June highlights, since it's relevant to the record we're talking about. I went a couple weeks ago and saw Flamingosis live, and he's doing this really cool thing right now where, for years he's always performed on his own, kind of as a DJ setup, essentially. But last November, went up to Denver and saw him. It was supposed to be this one-off with the Bodega Collective, is what they call this full band, and those shows were amazing. And so when I went a couple weeks ago here in Santa Fe, I was just expecting, the solo sets, which I'm always excited about. But, he did half with the Bodega Collective, doing the second half. And I'm really hoping. I love Better Will Come. This is, if I look at my Apple Music minutes, this is by far and away the thing I've listened to the most in the last month. If you've been to any of the shows that I've put on, and since this album has come out, it's usually playing before. It's usually playing between set breaks, and it's usually playing after. So it's just, it's an album, and you put it on and you see people are dancing to the the music while they're waiting for the next band to come out, and you can't ask for anything more than that. But what I'm getting at here is that whether it's a live recording of those Denver shows, or whether it's he had this band on Daymaker, and I believe they play a little bit here, but like what he's doing live in that second half is just so amazing. A little more, jam oriented. And I'm just hoping that at some point we get to hear that side of Flamingosis, on a studio record. But overall, no skips. One of my favorite albums of the year.
That's a big segue. Let's cut Karl. Is it one of your favorite albums of the year, would you say? Or at the very least, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but this was one that I really enjoyed as well. So, yeah, obviously have Kiley to thank for introducing me to Flamingosis. I think it, as you say, Daymaker was one of your top albums. Listened to it at that time. Remember really enjoying it. Albeit probably slightly out of season in December when I listened to it. Yeah, naturally intrigued to check back in with this one. And yeah, I just think it's a ton of fun. Perfect album for this time of year. Really uplifting. Great mix of electronic and these chopped up soul samples that are in there. Got some shades of like Nile Rodgers and Daft Punk. Just really vibrant, really enjoyable listen. And I think, my favorite section is that opening run. I think it's just fantastic. I think my favorite track on the whole album is the opener. It just comes straight out of the gate with these, hard shots of funk. Then those strings come in, and yeah, it's just absolute bliss. I think when I listened to it, I kind of made that clear in the chat. It was one of those holy shit, this is amazing moments listening to that for the first time. Soul Searcher immediately after that too. You know, it's got these great soulful vocals, the disco beat, and then the jazz horns in the back end. Never a coincidence as well. You know, the groovy, like again, the chic style guitars going on. These strings flying kind of in over the top of it, and the, you know, the floaty keys that come in as well. So just yeah, those three are the favorites for me. I'd say my only one criticism is that, you know, that I think there's a couple of tracks I maybe would have trimmed a touch in that middle section. You know, Everything Comes and is it Anime Elegy? For me, it maybe just sits in that groove a touch too long. You're kind of waiting, go back to the DIIV record, you know, you're waiting for that gear shift, and it's like, compared to the earlier tracks, it just doesn't get there quick enough for me. But again, you know, when it does go up a gear in the back end, you know, Feel Yourself, great vocals, those smooth guitar lines again. And then, yeah, the last track, I think it brings it nicely full circle, similar vibe to the opener. And yeah, just had a really fun time with this one. Like I say, maybe for me, just could have been a little bit tighter in places around the middle, but overall, just a really colourful, really fun dance record that's, like I say, it's kind of perfect background listening for, you know, the sunny days that we've had throughout this month. There we go.
2 positive ones. Yeah, and I feel I went on a journey with this one. I know Kylie, you were saying in the chat that you fully expect me to pick it 5th. Well, let's see. But yeah, I mean,
there's always DIIV, I guess.
I'll keep my lips sealed. But you know, you shared with us Nebula Gazer as kind of a first taste of this, and I was getting very much the circles around the sun vibes here, quite psyche and stuff. So I suppose when I first listened to this, it was like, whoa, like I was not expecting this, and it took me a while to kind of really orient myself. And I think the first probably couple of listens, I was kind of scratching my head like, this is Flamingosis. It just like took me by surprise, I think. And then I went through a phase of when I was listening to it whilst I was working, and I was like, okay, this is now hitting. Much in the same way, you know, some of my favorite kind of music to like work to, like the likes of DJ Shadow, Boards of Canada, that it was kind of hitting those vibes. And then when I went back to that kind of final, okay, let's round this up, nothing else on, focus on it, I went back somewhere in the middle, closer to my second point of view, but yeah, slightly further down from that kind of eureka feeling in my second phase of listening to this. Maybe I need a few more phases, let's say, before the end of the year. So quite a journey, like I say. But yeah, I think, you know, as Karl says, it's a very strong start. There's an awful lot going on here, and I think some of the things I appreciated the most were the retro instrumentation, which pervades quite a lot of it. For me, the best so in The Truth About It featuring Late Night Radio, which I picked in the monthly playlist, and it sort of begins like something which could be out of Introducing, with this kind of hip hop beat. Then you get some trumpet, you get some flute, which is like reminiscent of Nick Drake or Stevie Wonder. And then even towards the end, I was getting strong Baker Street vibes with this track. So I was just loving all those like musical cornerstones across the track, and it's just such a relaxing listen. Which I think those kinds of songs are, can be maybe underappreciated sometimes. When you get one which just puts you into that frame of mind, it's a real joy. So that was my highlight over the entire record. But yeah, certainly the first couple after The Pain, Soul Searcher, as Karl already mentioned, were again just lots of different influences sort of meshed into these 2 songs. Nebula Gaze, I thought, was a really great kind of introduction to what what Flamingosis can do. And I think again there was a bit more of that more retro vibe on that particular song. And you know, I also quite like towards the back end, you know, Good Days Ahead and Road to Reconstruction, and was also feeling it was a bit similar to some Corey Wong I've listened to in the past, like elements of that, I would say. So yeah, I would probably also agree with the point made by Karl that there could have been a little bit of trimming. It feels like it could have been slightly tighter on the run. But I mean, there wasn't anything which I disliked. Daft Punk definitely is a touch point here. Disco music, jazz music. There's, you know, just all sorts going on, and clearly someone who's got a good grasp of so many different instruments and so many different genres. That yeah, it's a very good summer record to be, yeah, diving into and yeah, seeing whether you you know are feeling it or not, I suppose. But yeah, all three of us are very much in the feeling it category, and yeah, maybe there'll be better to come in future as well. So continuing my corny endings. So with that, we'll move on to our fourth record, and that's Pull the Rope by Ibibio Sound Machine, which was Karl's selection.
Yeah, so Ibibio Sound Machine, and I've kind of followed for quite a while now. First heard them through their debut album track Let's Dance, which, if you've not heard that song, definitely go back and check it out. Again, like, perfect for this time of year. I can't even remember how I heard it. I think it was just one that maybe Apple recommended to me, and I was like, oh, holy shit, what is this? Give me more of this. So yeah, love that song. I don't think I dug much further into their catalogue at that point. It wasn't until I saw them at live at Leeds Fest in 2018, and they were just absolutely sensational. So just an amazing festival band, amazing live band. And after that, I kind of went back to their first two albums, and then have, you know, followed every release since that. They've also played like Lost Village a couple of times too. But yeah, can't recommend kind of seeing them, you know, at a festival or live if you ever get a chance, because it is just another level. But yeah, I would say up to now, like, their albums front to back maybe haven't always gripped me like their live show has. Mentioned back in November, the ill-fated Crystal Fighters record. But yeah, the Crystal Fighters were another band, you know, fantastic. I think they're fantastic live, but, you know, Crystal Fighters, a lot of their studio output I actively disliked. So I think Ibibio, you know, they aren't quite that level, but a similar case where their albums I usually play through a couple of times, enjoy them, but maybe rarely revisit the full album. Usually, you know, there's a few singles on there that I'll go back to. And yeah, I think their last album was a good example of that. You know, some great tracks on there. Protection from Evil, Electricity, 17, 18, 19, as in that's the track name, not the numbers of the tracks. And yeah, produced by Hot Chip as well, that record. So some great moments on there, but I think overall it was just maybe a little too long. But yeah, with this new record, I think they may have finally won me over with the full album. It's one of those where there's not really a duff track on here. It's a tight 37 minutes, so it's their shortest album to date as well. Doesn't overstay its welcome, and I just think it's got some of their best songs on here. You know, Pull the Rope, the title track. It's just this like fun house of like wild synths, brass horns coming in. Just, you know, just a really fun way to start the record. Particularly that back half of that song where it really comes alive. It'll be one of those where at the start you'll be like, okay, this is a little bit annoying, and then by the end of it you'll be fully into it. Okay, it kind of wins you round straight away. Got to Be Who You Are. You know, love the kind of soulfulness of that track. Love the bassy synths on there as well. Political Incorrect, I think, is great. going back to the Arab Strap, it's also, anti-social media. The line on there, we don't talk anymore, we're like zombies, shadows on a screen. So yeah, you've got this like cutting commentary mixed in with like this funky beat, some really like dazzling electronics going on. And then the final stretch is where my favorite stuff is, Mama Say, I thought was the standout of the pre-release singles. And I think it's still just, super catchy, great melody to it, just everything you want from, a single. Just really brilliant. And then straight after that, you've got Touch the Ceiling, which is unlike any other track on here. It's like this haunting, quite minimal ambient track. You've just got Eno Williams' like voice, which is just, the star of the show of the track. Again, it's like, I think it stands out because it really is like a real minimal moment in an album full of like these maximum volume instrumentations going on. And then Far Away straight after, awesome psych funk guitars going on and that, and then Dance in the Rain I think finishes off quite an awesome record. I think it's one of those where, like I say, there's not really a bad track, and I think all the issues I've had with the previous albums they've kind of solved it with this one. No wasted moments, it doesn't go on too long, and it's just a blast from start to finish. So, and like the Flamingosis one, it is made for this time of year as well. So, just a really fun listen, and for me, this is their best one to date.
Kiley, did you also enjoy Pull the Rope?
Yeah, I did. I think it's interesting to hear that this is one that Karl has a lot of experience with, whereas I came into Ibibio Sound Machine with Electricity just a couple of years ago, an album that I agree is a little bit long, but it's interesting to listen to Pull the Rope knowing that the last one was produced by Hot Chip, and while listening to Pull the Rope, like the things that I was missing, I guess, are more Hot Chip influenced from Electricity. I don't think this one is as immediately catchy to me, but overall, it is like the Flamingosis record where I'm just putting it on, usually weekend mornings, that kind of thing, and just letting it go. Gotta Be Who You Are, Mama Say, Let My Yes Be My Yes, that stuff is, fire. I really like this record. I'm like, Touch the Ceiling and Far Away and Dance in the Rain, like, just, it peters out for me. So like, I don't know. I would give this like a 78%. now that we're doing percentages on here, I would give it a 78%. Really do like it, and it is one that I have continued to listen to. I know we're talking about the past with these records, but it is one that has made the jump into the next month, that I'm continuing to just let it develop. And who knows if it makes like the year-end list, could have something completely different to say about it by then. So yeah, as a second impression of this band, really dig it, and definitely top of my list of if they ever come this way, definitely getting the ticket and going to see them to really get that experience.
I give a rating to each of the albums. Mine's 7.8 out of 10. So yeah, it might be different how we kind of convey that and how that feels to us, but certainly where I landed. So yeah, which is weird. I don't usually share the ratings I give, but on this occasion it feels right. So I just a fun summer record. They're a band who I've seen on many festival lineups I might have seen bits of, but never actually, gone out to see them. I suppose the last one I can think of was on one of the main roads in Oxford where there's lots of venues, and they had a day-long festival there, and I think I remember them being on the lineup, and I might have caught a bit of their set and thinking this is quite live, this is quite good fun. But at the time I wasn't specifically seeking them out, so they've always been kind of on the radar, but without ever diving in. And yeah, like this it's the right time of year, basically, like a few of the albums we've listened to in May, where it's just, I think very much trading on vibes with what they do. My favorite here has got to be Who You Are. I think you mentioned the kind of fat, chunky, spacey synth, which is kind of really almost pulverizes your ears and your bones when you listen to it with your headphones. The musicianship on that particular track is excellent. And yeah, there's plenty of other highlights like Mama Say, which has been mentioned. Dance in the Rain, I think it's a great closing track. I thought it began a bit like 212. And yeah, like, the lyrics aren't ones which you have to particularly find hidden meanings. They're saying it how they are. It's coming from the heart, and they're backing it up with an awful lot of interesting and varied instrumentation. And like, there's certain albums you listen to which makes you want to see them live, because you get the inclination live might be the best way to consume what they do. And I think what you were saying, Karl, basically endorses that feeling, and that's where I feel I am with Ibibio, Sound Machine. And when I do see them on an next lineup at a festival I go to, I will be keen to check them out, as long as I don't clash with another band I particularly want to see. But yeah, it just like you guys, no bad tracks, some better than others. Eno Williams's voice is very good throughout. I actually thought on Them Say that her voice sounds a bit like Skin from Skunk and Nancy in that particular track. There's a bit of a Daft Punk style outro, so yeah, there is that kind of blurring a little bit with Flamingosis and some of the musical similarities. But yeah, a lot of variety, and yeah, I don't think you can really not listen to this without it making you smile or just feeling a bit invigorated through giving it a shot. And yeah, certainly an enjoyable entry for the pod in what's been a pretty good month. So there we go, three of us all very pleased with Pull the Rope. We now move on to our final album. So A Dream Is All We Know. This was my pick. It's also the first time we've had an artist on for the second time, and Kiley a year ago selected Lemon Twigs when I'd never heard of them. Lemon Twigs. Maybe they should change to or the Lennon Brothers, as we've done that very funny video which we shared with. Who was that with, the video? It was
Anthony Fantano, yeah.
Anthony Fantano, yeah. He's pretending to interview them and just messing up by calling them the Lennon Brothers. But yeah, so year on, fair play. Your pick from a year ago is now my pick this year, so you have a bit more room. It's basically giving you de facto 2 picks this month, and also was lucky that the album actually dropped through on the email, so I also was able to review this one. So I did that sort of end of April. So this has been now, feels a very long time ago since first diving into it, and you can read the thoughts on the 5 to 9 blog. Another push if you wish. But to summarize, last year with Everything Harmony was just a fantastic album, which just grew and grew on me by the end of the year. One of the few actually which kind of went up in my estimation from my original feeling on the album. And here, I wouldn't say it's quite as good as Everything Harmony, but I don't think it's far off. It's probably a little bit more straightforward. You got 12 tracks, and I'd say there's perhaps not as much variety as there was with Everything Harmony, which went through so many different genres and styles. But they've kind of found their sound for A Dream Is All We Know. I mean, it was all done, I think, was it was it analog? There was a certain way they recorded this, apart from one of the songs, which was recorded with Sean Lennon in his New York studio, which was not done in such the same way, but essentially a way where you can get the instrumentation so that it's quite faithful to that sound from the 60s and 70s, which very much their music harks back to. All of the leading tracks going into this album I really enjoyed, and as we discussed right at the beginning, the first track dropped, but basically the first single I heard this year, with My Golden Years, which was a very pleasant surprise, and even more so that the fact that they were returning 12 months later with a follow-up to Everything Harmony. So that one was great track. You got the Beach Boy vibes, very sunny pop song. And then They Don't Know How to Fall in Place. You got some jangly sharp guitar there, of course, lush harmonies, which is almost their USP, and quite a nice piano in the bridge on that particular track. A Dream Is All I Know is just such a rousing anthem of theirs, and yeah, clearly is the title track and what they're aiming for here, where they're just essentially saying life is a dream, and that's a maybe slightly referential in terms of that they've carved out this niche in this day and age from an era 40-50 years which precedes them. But something I've mentioned to you guys before, but the part of the album which really just I'm sort of in lemon twigs heaven is from How Can I Love Her More through to I Should Have Known Right from the Start, and in between you have Ember Days and Peppermint Roses, and those 4 tracks, it's just you struggle to find a better run of 4 tracks from their discography, I'd imagine. Not that I can speak for pre Everything Harmony Lemon Twigs. But yeah, I mean, the best of Beach Boys, the best of the Beatles. Even in Peppermint Roses, I felt slightly System of a Down like with the vocals, how they kind of convey them. And I Should Have Known Right from the Start is just my absolute favorite track off here. But something where we might potentially disagree, but the last track I wasn't overly sold on. Rock On Over and Over. It came across very status quo-y, which I know that they've got more variety in their discography. I've just never heard it. And when I hear status quo, it just is a bit middle of the road. But perhaps it just suffers for what precedes it. And again, I think this is one I want to certainly listen to a few more times before the year is out and see whether, like Everything Harmony, by the end of the year, it's even going higher than where it is right now, which is certainly very high on my list. So yeah. Kudos to Kiley, really. This whole pod, particularly with my picks from May. There's a lot of nods to you and your influence and what you're passing on. But yeah, just a band I'm now, such a big fan of, and I really can't wait to see them at the festival I'm going to later this year. So yeah, with that, I feel Kiley, you've got to go next.
Yeah, this is. I feel like A Dream Is All We Know is the summer to Everything Harmony's fall from last year. That one was a little moodier, and I think they stay in this consistent growth of songwriting that I think they've, as we've talked about the last record, really have gone into this new era of putting their stuff together here, and these arrangements on this album are incredible. But it's just it's come out at the right time of year, like Flamingosis and like Ibibio Sound Machine. Like, this is what I want to listen to. I think I want to talk about Rock On Over and Over, which closes out the album, just because I love this entire thing. But for me, in a strange way, that is my favorite track on this record, just because it delineates so much from these lush Baroque pop arrangements and all this stuff that they've done into this just like feral Mark Bolan, T-Rex, glam rock palette that I agree it's it's a song that you, I guess, may have heard 1,000 times before, but I think just them tacking that onto the end of this album every time it comes on, I'm just like, hell yeah, it's so much fun. But yeah, with you as well, Peppermint Roses, I should have known right from the start. How Can I Love Her More? Like the B-side to this, I think we listened to the singles enough before it came out to really get the vibe. But yeah, the second half. The only thing is on Ember Days, like sometimes the lyrics, the ones of us on the factory lines or whatever, it just makes me laugh that these like, young dudes from middle class Long Island are talking about, I know it's metaphorical, but it makes me laugh every time. But yeah, and then I think T-Rex, there's a little ELO, but they're kind of, while there is a lot of Beatles and Beach Boys on here, especially In the Eyes of a Girl, that's like just classic Brian Wilson right there, old school, amazing. But this is the development from the last record where their influences, what they're going for, but they're just, the lyrics and the arrangements are so good that they're just hitting this next level. And I don't know. Let's see if they can make it 3 in a row, because I think this record's phenomenal.
3 in a row in terms of your album of the year?
No, for Endless Harmony. Well, that could be 2. I'm not sure. This is up there, but just saying, after their first one was so good and the sophomore was, I think, awful, and the third one was fine, it really feels like they've said, okay, let's be who we are and write our own songs here. And it's paying off.
Definitely agree with that. So over to you, Karl. What did you make of A Dream Is All We Know?
Yeah, I just got reminded of that when you were just going through the albums there. What was the album with the monkey? There was something with a
Go
monkey.
to School.
Go to School.
Yeah, it was a concept about a monkey go to school. It's awful.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that album last year, and I was like, I still need to listen to that album just because it sounds so ridiculous.
Maybe it's time for me to go back after loving these two so much and see if I've changed my opinion on it. But
yeah, we'll do a Redux review of Monkey Going to School. But yeah. I mean, for the last May was like the first time checking in with these guys since Do Hollywood. And yeah, safe to say, was blown away, similar to you guys, by how much they had matured, come on since that record. I kind of said at the time, Everything Harmony felt like an instant classic, and I think a year on it feels even more like one. I think, considering what it's done for them, their career, winning a lot of new fans off that record as well. Just what more can we say about that one? But it just added to the expectation, for this one coming out exactly a year later. You worry it's, is it them rushing an album out to, capitalize on their momentum? Surely it's not going to be anywhere near as good. But, while I think, like you guys, I keep going back and forth. I think I still prefer Everything Harmony. I think just like the highs on that record are a touch higher, but like you say, this one is right there with it. And you kind of touched on it, Kiley. I think it's the perfect companion piece to that album, and yeah, it just keeps that high standard going. Yeah, I kind of mentioned it in the chat. I think the first couple of plays, similar to Everything Harmony, I wasn't sure, but the more you go back to it, these timeless melodies, these timeless songs just get lodged in your head and just pull you back in time and time again. And people will criticize them for being unoriginal or for being a rip-off, being a pastiche of these bands, but I'm kind of the mindset, when the songs are this good, who the hell really cares? Because Go back to
Yep.
the Arab Strap. I don't give a fuck anymore. Like when the songs are this good, yeah, it's like it really doesn't matter. So, you know, you touched on My Golden Years and A Dream Is All I Know. Wasn't completely won over when they dropped as singles, but yeah, absolutely love those now. And then I think Church Bells in that opening run is probably my favourite of the non-singles. Just another one where, you know, the whole Beatleness of it all, you know, it just slowly wins you over. And just, yeah, really fantastic track. And I think that's what I'd say to people going into this as well. And Everything Harmony as well. Like if you're kind of just discovering these records and you find yourself like initially turned off, you know, these are two albums that you definitely have to stick with, I'd say, because they're both just are so catchy, so infectious. They'll just really grow on you. But yeah, like, I mean, like you guys said, as great as that first half is, it's all about that final stretch. You know, how can I love her more was my favorite of the singles by far. And, you know, it's just really charming, super catchy, utterly timeless. It's not enough adjectives for that song. It's so good. Peppermint Roses, you know, you mentioned, you know, what sounds like an organ that goes on in the background. Again, more shades of the Beatles, which I love. And then, yeah, let's talk about Rock On Over and Over at the end. I have to stop myself singing like the Status Quo lyrics every time. Like, you know, the I like it. Like from rock, as soon as that guitar comes in, like I just want to sing Rocking All Over the World. But no, even with that, you know, it's just a great way to end the album, and maybe kind of hints at where they might be going with the next one. I don't know, but you know, I'm quite jealous of you, Andrew, going to see them because it's, you know, that's one that I can see is going to go down a storm live as well. It's just a really fun track, and like I say, a nice way to round up the record. So I won't go on much more because I think between the three of us, we kind of covered how much we love it. And like I said, I think if you asked me to pick between Everything in Harmony and this one, I think, yeah, Everything in Harmony just about edges it. But it's one of those where I kind of keep flip-flopping depending on which one I listen to last. So, you know, ultimately this one's right up there too. And I think they're just having like a really purple creative patch. Another great record. And, you know, if we get another one next May, you know, I'm excited to see where they go from here.
Yes, please. Next May would be great. Our annual tradition. So all good. Right, we've gone through all five. So now it's time for the verdict. And yeah, Karl, why don't you kick us off?
Well, indeed. So it's probably no surprise that DIIV is fifth this month. You know, it's the one that didn't win me over, but I think up against these other four, which I really struggled to separate. You know, these other four, very different albums for different moods, I would say. And I kind of like them all about the same. So I kind of landed on just what I thought was more accomplished, kind of front to back. And on that basis, I've got Flamingosis in 4, Ibibio Sound Machine in 3, Arab Strap in 2, and then probably no surprise that the Lemon Twigs is my number 1 for this month.
That's my exact same. So basically, yeah, which I don't know if that's ever happened before with us, Karl, but there we go. Yeah, I'm exactly the same. DIIV 5,
Damn.
Flamingosis 4, Ibibio Sound Machine 3. Although between those 3, I didn't find too much difference. And then sort of go up a level, and I found that Arab Strap and Lemon Twigs were quite close for me, but Lemon Twigs was the one to take the win. So Kiley.
Well, I guess we know the winner, so I'll switch around the middle, you know, the meat of the sandwich. DIIV is 5, and I'm with you guys. Like the rest of these records, I all really enjoy. So it's tough to put it 4, but I'd say Arab Strap at 4, Ibibio Sound Machine at 3, Flamingosis at 2, and Lemon Twigs at 1.
Wow. So we have a full house for the Lemon Twigs with A Dream Is All We Know. So I think did we have that with Marika Hackman first episode of the year? I think it's only our second.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Second full house this year. But the boys, the Daddario brothers, they just keep bringing the goods. So yeah, congratulations to the Lemon Twigs with A Dream Is All We Know winning our May album of the month. Next month, we will be discussing Below the Waist by Goat Girl, The Art of the Lie by John Grant, I Hear You by Peggy Goo, Stung by Pond, and There's a Big Star Outside by Swim Deep. Also look out for our poll where we'll be asking you to vote for the 5th album we'll be reviewing in July. And as ever, you can stay up to date with what we're up to by following 5 to 9 on X and Instagram, New Music Central via @NewMusicKarl on Twitter, Mama Mañana Records via @Mama Mañana Records on Instagram, and Blinded by the Floodlights via @BFloodlights on Twitter /X, Twitter X, whatever. So there we go. May's Album of the Month podcast over and out. Thanks for listening.